We met a woman who was in that convenience store. There you see, mid-right, under the block, who saw that little girl in the store, didn't like the way things looked, didn't like the way she interacted with the adult she was with, and had a hunch. She had a hunch something was wrong. Took her 4 days to follow up that hunch, but eventually those adults were arrested and charged with child molestation. Made us think about hunches.
Oh, listen, just one more thing. I know.
Remember Columbo?
At least I've convinced my superiors that Jennifer Wells was murdered, was not a suicide.
Peter Falk always had a hunch, and quick as he could wheel around and scratch his head, he had his quarry. Come on, that's just Hollywood, right? Not so, says the real thing. Retired New York homicide detective Vernon Geberth remembers a real case that seemed like a suicide.
The whole scene was set up perfectly. The body in the tub, the empty vial of pills, and everyone bought into it.
But his sixth sense told him something wasn't right.
And I told the sergeant to clear the room. I bent down, I folded the woman's eyelids back, and I saw petechial hemorrhage. Petechial hemorrhage is presumptive evidence of a throttling or strangulation.
Case closed. Geberth collared the husband, just one of 8,000 homicide cases he's worked, where in many cases his gut was more important than his shoe leather. So how would you define a hunch then? Is it instinct, or is it learned, or is it a combination?
Well, the technology of intuition is based on instinct. Then we enhance it with learned experiences. As a murder cop, when I walk into a room, I promise you that I'm going to follow my instinct, because many times my brain is working faster subconsciously than I in the conscious world.
Scientists have confirmed this. A hunch is what happens when our conscious, rational, and subconscious reflexive side of our brains converge. Judgment meet instinct. It's what happened when Ted Kaczynski's brother read the Unabomber Manifesto in 1995. And it's what happened to Tracy Lee Dean when she saw a sad little girl alone in an Alabama convenience store 2 weeks ago. After 4 days of persistent calling, she got police to arrest the couple who allegedly molested her. So what's the advice to people? If you see something out there, what should you do?
Well, my advice is that fear is good. If your body's telling you watch out, pay attention. That's how those animals stay alive out there in the woods. You don't see a deer hanging around, do you?
Anthropologist Helen Fisher does a lot of research on this subject. She's at Rutgers University. She joins us. Helen, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Is there really a scientific basis to all of this?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of scientific explanations. First of all, you know, that gut feeling, it's called body loops. I mean, the decision-making parts of the brain are very well connected to the stomach and to the heart and to the lungs and to the skin, and the body is constantly chiming in with its feelings, and they guide your rational behavior and contribute to what your thoughts are.
It can actually create a physical response then,
Absolutely,
can't it?
we constantly have that. But there's also more to intuition. I mean, they asked about the experience part, and we now know that what intuition is, and what it is as you're studying any kind of system, a murder crime, a football, the stock market, you begin to see patterns and relationships and quirks in the system, and then you store all that knowledge. It's called chunking. You store all that knowledge into a large complex design, and then when you see a tiny little aspect of that huge complex design, your brain instantly brings up the entire pattern, and you don't have to go through that plodding step-by-step thought.
Isn't that interesting? So really, and that can happen really subconsciously. In other words, you're accessing a lot more information than you're aware of.
Absolutely, and that's exactly, you know, that the policeman, when he looked into the eye of the dead woman, he saw a tiny little part of a huge design which spelled murder to him. So it's not so supernatural. No, they've thought that for the last 25,000 years. I mean, 2,500 years. I mean, the ancient Greeks thought it, but it's true.
Do you believe it to be true?
Well, it's not a belief; it's a fact. I mean, the reason it's a fact is that women are, on average, around the world, we've got data from over 10 countries, better at reading the emotions in your face. They're better at reading posture, gesture, tone of voice, and they start as very small children. An infant girl will respond more to a human face than an infant boy, and all through their lives they are better at picking up all these clues, and 90% of human emotional expression is nonverbal.
Is that because women are more observant? Because there are a lot of observant men. I mean, that homicide detective is as good as you get. He's as intuitive as any human being would be, right?
women have been built to read the signs of small children. I mean, for millions of years, women had the hardest task on earth, which is trying to figure out what these tiny little nonverbal babies are trying to say to you. And so they have all these tools, these nonverbal tools, and it's associated with estrogen. I mean, the more estrogen a woman has, the more likely she's going to be able to read all of these clues.
Here's the trick, though. As we progress, and I put that in quotations, as we progress, we become less dialed in, less tuned in to the instinctual side of us, the intuitive side. And that can be bad, can't it?
I think it can. In fact, I've always thought that the more we developed human language, the more we've depended on this system of language and not listened to our gut feelings and to what we read in our faces. And, women don't depend as much on language as men do. In fact, the female brain is better connected. The sides are better connected. So they collect a lot more pieces of data from different types of modalities. And so they will assemble it in a more complex pattern and see these relationships.
So the advice would be, if you have a hunch, follow it?
It's hard to know because sometimes we spook ourselves, but I try to.
All right. Helen Fisher, thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Soledad, you were right.
And Dr. Fisher, my thanks to you for proving me right with all the scientific stuff backing me up. Appreciate it.